Test, 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 test. Good morning. Check, check. Can you see me, Claire?
Can't hear me, Anna?
I think that my sound's okay.
I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
hi Claire, good morning.
You can hear me now?
I can hear you a little bit. You're a little bit soft.
I'm going to mute myself again.
Now we've got Roxanne on, so that's cool. I should give you guys a minute or two to pop in. I'm starting on, I love this tactic that we're doing today. It's a little bit of a long one, so I'll be going a tiny bit fast, but just interrupt me if you want to, throw in some kind of aha or something. So it's going to start on page 167. Just turning on the screen here. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and start. If someone else comes in, they can catch up. It's not too big of a deal. So this is tactic number 9, and it's called Creating Urgency Overcoming Buyer Reluctance. And I think that the material in this can hold true for seller reluctance as well. I love this material in here. I realize there's some good stuff that we'll cover. And the thing I keep saying about the Shift book and the Shift material is it was written during the last downturn, and it's talking about a different time of the market when we had such a very overwhelming buyer's market at the time. And yet we learned so many things that are useful today. And also we're going into a technology shift. And because of the shift of the consumer, the shift of interest rates is another one that will shift pretty often. And so even though in the last 10 years, we haven't really had a buyer's market the same way as we did during when Gary wrote this, there is useful things, because what I found is that the reluctance that buyers get, there's really no other. Sellers will get a little bit of seller anxiety. Am I taking a price that I shouldn't take, or should we have waited to sell, or something like that? They'll have a little bit of anxiety, but the buyers really, really go through a lot of anxiety, even in the best of markets. So I'm starting on page 167 here. And then he says at the beginning from Jim Rohn, if someone is going down the wrong road, he doesn't need motivation to speed him up. He needs education to turn him around. I like that quote, because when you think about when we make decisions, the only thing that influence is our decisions. We have emotions and we have thoughts, and then the education is really the only thing will steer us one way or another. We'll gather more information if we're not sure. So he says at the beginning of 167, a buyer's market is not a fence-sitting, waiting, loitering, delaying, dawdling, postponing, vacillating, hesitating, wavering, faltering, foot-shuffling market. He's talking about a buyer's market being a time when buyers need to act. And so what I think about this is oftentimes, no matter what market you're in, the buyers will waffle and oftentimes not tell you they're doing that. So I really learned during this time of the downturn how to engage your clients in figuring out when they're having that anxiety internally and they're not telling you. So he says, the great irony of a buyer's market is even though opportunity to buy is high, buyer urgency tends to sit at an all-time low. And he's just talking about how at some times of the market, and this can be true even in given neighborhoods, that you would think it would be the opposite. Whenever it's the perfect time to buy, people would be more motivated, but then they start to kind of get a anxiety that maybe they're going to pay too much. So it will stop at the very bottom of 167. The fear of paying too much will seem to stop most in their tracks and mobilize them. It's just the wanting to get the best deal, and if I wait, where price is going to go down. So on 168, the myth that fuels reluctance. In a shift, buyers can lose sight of the primary reasons driving their home purchase: a different neighborhood, a better school district, their work or recreation, floor plan, more space, become hyper-focused on price and price alone. And I'll find this with a certain percentage of the population, as we learn in some of our trainings, no matter what the house has, price will be the biggest thing. And then some people are willing to say, this has the perfect yard, I'm willing to overpay, kind of. So when you've got too much inventory, then you lose the sense of value and urgency, and then you'll get price is the only factor. So on the left-hand side, buyers can't wait for headlines to say buy now. Headlines will only let you know when the best time to buy has passed. So the thing about us being expert is we know the market before it's happening or during it's happening, and we're the experts looking at it every day. Go down to the bottom paragraph of 168. There are two types of buyers in regards to timing. There are those who believe they can time the market, and there are those who believe the timing will find them. The very bottom of the page, if you just always stay in the market, timing will simply find you. So this is kind of think about this as a buyer is out looking and you're actively looking with them. You're seeing what's on the market. You're seeing when something comes up. You start to see those cream puff deals. You know when a house is going to go right away. Well, how do you know that? Because you're in the market watching it all the time. If you're always in the market actively paying attention, although you may never sell at the highest peak or buy at the absolute bottom, you can buy right and always do well over time. Second paragraph, he says timers are waiters, those who will wait for prices to come down. And then in the graph at the bottom of page 41, he's just showing us how to explain it to the buyer. So what I think is during this time of the shift, when the shift was written, we aren't really doing buyers consultations the way that I think that we do them now, or at least that quality agents do them now. I do see a lot of agents still don't do them for some reason. And so when you do a visual like on the bottom of page 169, where do you think the interest rates are right now? Where do you think housing prices are? What are economic indicators? And if the prices are going down, which even though we could say in the price point for us here in Conroe area, 200,000-ish, prices are not going down, right? They're going up. And yet if you go to a certain price range, say 500,000, then you could find them going down, and especially at different times of year. Right now, you're already heading into the market where they're going to be going up because it's the spring market. But anyway, you go to page 170, you start drawing and the client's watching you, and then you start to say, tell me when the market's hit its bottom. Till you turn your little pencil up, then they go, oh, there it is. But obviously they're behind then. Same thing on when it's going up, which is where we are now. If you buy right now where it's going up, say you're in that sweet spot range, how are you going to know when it hits its highest? Are you willing to pay more in a month than you are today? Well, you can't tell other than to tell me when the market starts to turn back down. And the market is cyclic. Well, we know that it is. Does the consumer know that it is? Until you sit there and have that talk with them, even the best of consumers, I have some wealthy clients who still have to have this conversation again, because why? They get emotional. So on 171 in the middle of the page, the moment of truth, hopefully they realize the only way they'll ever know the market's bottomed out is when it has started back up, and the only way to know it's peaked is when it started back down. So perfect timing is kind of luck, and it's also being with an economic expert. On 171, like on that right-hand side, creating a best buy list has re-energized my team. We're finding the best deals, sharing them with the team, letting our buyers know it's an exciting process, and now we've got some sales. So I had an aha on this part because I thought, okay, if you in this market where it's actually a seller's market in most areas, then if you are advertising on your, say it's Instagram or whatever you guys are using, and you say best buy deal, that still is going to pique an interest of a buyer because they're frustrated right now with inventory. you have the best house of the week or best deal going on right now, it's going to sell in a day, call me now. That could be an effective tool to use. He talks about page 172. The smartest people know this, and the smartest money never goes looking for it. They play in the safe zone. So this is a nice diagram. I love the way Gary does diagrams, where he's talking about buying too high, selling too low, and hitting that sweet spot in between as the markets fluctuate and you stay in that zone. So I'll give an example. I've got an investor client right now who is looking for a rental property, and I don't want them to pay retail full price for an investment property. They need to be paying below. They're an investor. And so we'll just stay in that zone where it's not too high, and then looking for that 1 in a million, only too low. Really, they just lose out on a lot of houses in between. And we've had that happen. So he's just talking about the safe zone. He says in the second paragraph, people who buy in a buyer's market are the smart ones. They're not unrealistic and they're not greedy. So people who buy in a buyer's market are the smart ones. And there's opportunity in every market. And yet, whenever my investor clients or regular clients are buying at the top in the seller's markets, I do sometimes question that investment. So looking for an investment in the midst of the safe zone is what you have to be doing every day. On page 172 at the bottom, people who attempt to predict the bottom in a buyer's market are essentially undecided. Have we hit the bottom yet? And we're not trying to predict the floor, but just trying to buy smart. I think the same thing for the interest rates. Right now, it's such a smart time to buy. These interest rates are so amazing. Could they go lower? Could they go up? Eventually, they'll go up. We know that. They've been down so low, predicted to stay down. I mean, it's incredible purchase power. So it's just talking about what's in the buyer's mind, what's in their media. You think that we know what we know. And the buyers are on Google. The buyers are just like we are when we have a symptom of a disease and we Google everything before we go listen to what our doctor says. They're getting all kinds of information. So understanding urgency, the root cause and how to respond to a lack of it. How you help the buyers rediscover urgency whenever they falter. Only buyers who are able to, I'm in the middle of 173, only buyers who are able, ready, and willing to buy a home ever actually buy one. You ever get some people who just can't pick a house or just can't make up their mind? This is very common. Most of them go through it, they just don't always share it with you. But if they're not able, ready, and willing, what does that mean? Bottom of the page there, the personal reasons that are motivating them to purchase a home, their willingness to buy, their sense of urgency, when they want or need to buy a home. Willingness to buy is what gets your attention. So if I found a house today, would I be ready to buy it? Like for me, well, yeah, but I got to list my house first. You had a buyer for your home today and you're ready to list it. They wanted to buy it. Would you sell it? Well, yeah, but that's you're looking for the signs of willingness. So I'm on page 174. You can only afford to work with buyers whose time frame is now. Knowing a buyer level of urgency is just another way of knowing their timing and how willing they are to buy. So the urgency, the able, they actually can do the financials. They're ready for personal reasons. They're not waiting on something because a lot of times they won't tell you. And the willing market expectations. So the whole kind of theme of this chapter is the expectations of the buyer. The only time you get at an impasse with them is you're not meeting their expectations, not you, meaning the house, the market, some conditions. So the buyer's ability to buy is one of the first things you assess their ability to buy, right? First, are they pre-qualified? Could they buy? Is there anything that would stop them? And then he just really kind of talks about the state of the market there on that page 174 and move to 175, where you see the word ability in quotations. In response to the previous loose lending practices, suddenly lenders tightened lending standards. They quit offering so many of the programs, asked for stricter appraisals, required higher credit scores, and demanded more money down. So this is where I feel if you guys, depending on how long you've been in the market, do you understand the history of what's happened with the lending? Do you understand what happened during the last housing crisis? I'm not saying you have to go study history, but first of all, a lot of people do remember it if they have bought and sold homes over the years. And just because they had this experience before, the markets change even almost quarterly. So just working them through some of the financial things that happen. Why are we so afraid to talk about buyers' finances? Why are we so afraid to clue into what they think about credit scores and down payments and closing costs? I find people still get so confused about that, even multiple offers. It's kind of like multiple transactions with us, almost like they get a little bit of amnesia. I always say it's kind of like childbirth. They forget that pain, and then they just remember the good. So page 175, middle of the page. To counter such challenges, you must find working financing solutions, counterattack to put any false ideas buyers might have about their ability to buy. Knowledge and a great loan officer are the keys. So many times the buyers will resist getting the loan officer relationship going, and that can be such a detriment when it comes time. Down at the bottom of 175, readiness is about wants and needs. It's a buyer's personal reasons for buying a home. These are the things you discover during qualifying someone during your buying consultation. It's the why that leads them to buy. So I'm on page 176. I'm sorry, guys. I told you I'm moving fast because it's a lot of material this morning. So just bear with me and, yell at me if you want me to slow down. So buyers' personal reasons for moving, buying up, or owning instead of renting are possibly the most powerful determinants of their readiness to buy. So think about that again. Why are you buying? Well, I'm moving. Why are you moving? Am I buying up? Am I downsizing? Am I staying the same as my first purchase? These are all the true motivators behind my move. Like right now, for me, I'm relocating. That is a powerful motivator. I'm not going to stay where I am. So therefore, I'm a very motivated buyer. Am I able to go move and buy and whatever? Well, let's just say I say yes. Or do I hesitate? It's just a conversation. So the someday or the right now, what is driving the buyer? Middle or second paragraph, Gary tells a story of when his parents had to move and a job. So your personal wants are what you think is going on, but your needs are what are truly motivating you. Your need to move, it has to do something with space, time, money. There's usually something that sparks that need more than just the desire. And getting to that is the power of the consultation. So you're going to your third paragraph, make your buyer pre-qualification and consultation time count. Once you help somebody understand their motives and overcome any doubts or reluctance by reminding them of what they're going to gain by buying now. So say you have some reluctance to buy when you first meet them or first consult with them. What would it be that would cause you to buy or not to buy? Sometimes they haven't even really thought this through. That last paragraph, willingness is simply about action. It's about a buyer mentally and emotionally making a choice about when they'll buy. The truth is that when the market can absolutely, any kind of shift in the market will impact a buyer's willingness, making them wary and less eager to buy. For example, say you make an offer and you don't get it, or you have multiple offers and you don't win. You guys ever have that time where the buyer just decides to wait a while, where they were ready, even made an offer or two? That's because they're getting wary and they're starting to question, maybe it's not the right time to buy. So if you have that conversation with them in the beginning, here's what we found before, here's what's going to happen during, and here's what to expect. Let's set your expectations to help you during the time where you start to, especially first-time home buyers, but really all of them, is this the right one? What if? So he says on the bottom of 176, top of 177, it's the fear of making a mistake and the faith that they could make a good decision, and it can cause even the most able-ready to become less willing to buy, and only willing buyers buy. I'm not willing to buy, you can't make me. In a true seller's market, buyers usually fear missing out on accelerating home values. So it's kind of the opposite of what you're thinking. They're fearing missing out on accelerating. In a buyer's or a seller's market, well, what if they sell their house too low? They could get more for it later. And then if the buyer buys too high, they'll get buyer's remorse. They can years later have buyer's remorse. I mean, I had that happen where in the downturn 10 years ago, people had paid top of market and then now they had to move. And it was horrible feeling that they went through, almost sometimes caused them to not buy again. And you'll have that buyer's remorse and they'll cancel the contract. And you just basically, what his point in this part is, don't assume the buyer is still willing just because they made the contract. Don't assume they're still willing just because you got through inspections. Don't assume they're still willing even a week or two before closing. They're having buyer anxiety almost always. And so you've got to keep checking in with them. So he says on that third, I guess, paragraph, to get willing buyers to the closing table into their new home, you have to check in regularly with them until they move in. Don't back off. Don't assume anything. Willing buyers in the process every step of the way. Everyone has to be continually re-energized and recommitted. Nurture it, support it, appreciate it. Down at the bottom, 177, he's talking about having too many choices. So this is a phenomenon. He kind of goes into this part of the book of if you do have a lot of inventory, which is really not what we're experiencing right now in this market, and yet in the buyer's mind, they're on their app on their phone or whatever, and they might think, oh my gosh, too many to decide. This is where you have to help them narrow the field, right? So second paragraph here on page 176, all of this, buyer's ability, readiness, and willingness add up to one key decision for you. Are they worth investing your time, money, and effort when all these resources are already stretched? If you don't have a buyer who has a sense of urgency, or if you're sensing reluctancy, we've all been there. Down at the page, bottom of 178, 3 ways to energize buyer urgency. Number 1, my favorite, become the local economist of choice. And I just want to ask you guys, you who is on the call and me who's leading the call, how well do you know your market? How well are you keeping up on your market? I'm going to speak for myself, not you guys. I can get complacent and lazy about knowing the inventory. I think I, first of all, know the market really well, or I just don't have any buyers right now, or I haven't shown homes in a while. Like you guys know, I haven't been showing homes for a while. So getting back out there and looking at inventory, it will completely shift the way you're thinking about the market, just getting out there and looking. So being the local economist of choice, that's why you're pulling up KW stats every month. That's why you're watching different areas of the market at all times, price points, neighborhoods. You guys, it's your job, and you just cannot not do it. I don't care if all you are is a listing agent. You can't be an effective listing agent without knowing the market. You can't say, all I did was price per square foot and all homes are equal. So become the local economic, whatever that says, of choice, help them tap into their why, and address buyer reluctance. Those are the 3 ways to energize your urgency. So number 1, be the local economist of choice. I've talked to, if you guys know me on the call, that all the time. And here's the deal. Google, the apps on your phone, the other realtors telling them things, their family, their friends, everybody knows somebody who's smarter than, we are. All realtors are created equal. If you have any kind of insecurity about your own knowledge, that can shine through, and therefore you've got to be schooling yourself on the market. And yet, really, when it comes down to it, I don't care how many times I tell somebody, this is the perfect time to buy, this is a perfect house, this house is going to go tomorrow. They're going to listen to other sources. They're going to do their own. I'm sorry, we're in an information age, and they're not always going to believe that you have their best interest in mind, that you're not just trying to sell them something, don't want a commission. You've got to hit with the facts and expertise. So at the end of the day, you might not even trust your doctor or your accountant, but you're going to go to them for the final answer, but you're going to do some searching on the side. Well, I think that the tax law says this, right? So kind of go to the middle of 179, expert advice. When we read and ask people for information, when we need specific information, we seek professionals. So you've got to be thought of as an expert. I'm sorry, but if you're a part-time realtor or you don't even know the neighborhood they're talking about, if you don't know where the schools are, etc., I fall in that trap because we can't know everything. Google knows a whole lot more than I do, and yet they've got to know that you're an expert in real estate and in the market. So go to the bottom of 179. More than likely, they've gotten the entire story of the market on how to approach it. They believe they're fully informed, and they're not. As a result, bottom of the page, buyers are either half informed or misinformed. This is why it's so important to talk to them and not just show them houses. Like literally, you're showing them houses, and they're talking in the car, and they're looking up stuff that you don't even know they're looking up, and you are just looking at, it has 3 bedrooms, it has 2 baths, and they are doing much more broad reaching And if you're not having those discussions and you're only talking about the surface things, they're not going to respect that level of you. So go to 180, second paragraph. Buyers bring their ability and readiness to buy to the market. What are they getting from others? Some knowledge, some instruction, mostly economic and market perspective. Go to the left there. If you want to be the best buyer's agent, know every home for sale in the marketplace. Well, every home, you know, I'm a challenge that that's a lot. And yet, are you going every week to look at homes? Are you? I mean, seriously, are you? Because knowing your market there's no other thing that you can do besides that for your biggest source. So I'm going to go kind of down that page to the right of that box. By providing useful information, a balanced perspective, you can create more willing buyers. Most people allow their level of willingness to be greatly impacted by perspective others have. Your goal is to round out their economic understanding and market knowledge so they have the complete picture. It's about market expectations. It's to get them out of being emotion-based. The bottom of the page here, the perception of the market, wherever they got it from, is that they should wait. You will get the perspective of we should wait very often. Unless I've got a new job, a relocation, school, some bigger motivator, then my perception is, oh gosh, don't be in a hurry. It's just true. So down at the bottom of the page, it's got to be about benefiting them, not about benefiting you, and how that comes across in your conversations. Top of page 181, if you're not talking to your clients about numbers and fact, you'll never get a chance to address the emotional resistance they may have built up. Find every way possible to overcome media-driven real estate malaise. Be the one with the facts. Be the economic of choice. Educate them that real estate is a cyclic business. All of this has happened before and it'll happen again. What goes up comes down. I love this part of 181, second paragraph, where he says, certainly the long-standing trend of appreciation over time. At the very least, inflation will see to that. Equity buildup through mortgage debt paydown still remains a proven path to financial wealth. How often do you have talks with your clients about their wealth? Because I'm sorry, but a huge part of their net worth is in their homes. And this does not have to be a fancy, expensive house to build their portfolio towards their wealth. People are afraid to talk about wealth, and I'm not sure why, because the most wealth is made in real estate. You could take a 25-year-old who buys that first house instead of renting and set them up for being wealthy at 50 or 60, just from that starter home that they do. So I'm kind of in the middle of this third paragraph now. Buying and selling every 3 to 5 years and making a killing on both ends is a ridiculous mindset that people get into and believe that is possible. It's pretty unrealistic. True wealth forms a combination of appreciation, debt pay down, and then knowing the available tax advantages. That's where sometimes people talk about cash versus loans to write off the mortgage tax benefits. So that's something that I think is nice to know about. And if you don't quite understand it, talk to one of your tax advisors. I think Donna Rodriguez obviously is a great one. Bottom of page 181. As an expert, you can teach buyers about realistic economic expectations. You can say they can't sell high and buy low at the same time. Some people are not going to believe that. But there's a whole lot of content in these next few pages, guys. Page 182. During a seller's market, they will get more when they sell and then pay more when they buy. So yes, you're going to get more when you sell, but you're going to pay more when you buy. So this is a fantastic, these couple of pages about really understanding a move-up market versus a downsize market. So right now, if you're a seller and you're in a seller's market and you're downsizing, you're going to get more for your sell, but get a better price when you buy or pay more when you buy. How do you flip that on both directions? Okay, so this is really, it takes a little bit of getting it. When they sell and then buy in a buyer's market, they get less from their sale, but make it up with greater servings when they buy. Same thing true for their interest rate. Right now, the amount of savings they get from the interest rates being low will offset, what if I wait till April to sell and I'll make, $10,000 more? Yes, but what if interest rates go up? So the what if is what you're getting around here. Shortest term buying will always put anyone at the mercy of the market. This biggest gains are holding over long periods of time. So buying a family home and playing the market are two different things. Are these people buying a home for wealth, for investment, or are they buying a home to live in, to enjoy their life? It's just two different things. Yes, buy in that safe zone, don't overpay, but also realize that your long-term hold. You ever hear people say it's going to be their forever home, and yet you find that it really doesn't end up being their forever home? But that's their emotions, and they want to see themselves living there a long period of time, and you want that too. I tell every buyer, I'd love to see you in this home 7 years. Can you see yourself living in this house for 7 years? So in the middle of this page is an agent and local real estate economist. You must communicate economic market facts to buyers every chance you get. In your newsletter, on your website, your blog, your marketing pieces, continuously communicate local market statistics, financial information, and economic facts. Give historical perspective, which is what I was talking about earlier, of knowing what happened in the past, as well as a current one. Offset a national perspective with a local one. You guys have to realize people hear bigger perspectives than where they live all the time on the media. So what about your area's job growth, population, household income, the factual decline in an area, home values, share interest rate and financing options? Are you guys sharing finance options and interest rates? Or do you think that people know those? Hold on, I'm getting low on time here, sorry. So it just kind of talks about being in the cycle of buyers or sellers market, and I usually will emphasize to you, it could also be in the neighborhood they're in the area. Are you up against new construction? What about the new construction cycle? So the bottom of page 182, the key here, not to appear to be self-serving or simply offering your own opinions, cite sources and quote experts. You can prove it's an opportune time for buyers because their market expectations are a powerful source, I'm sorry, on page 183, powerful source of motivation for buyers. One of the biggest sources is market conditions. It's unlikely anyone giving your buyers advice, whether a national columnist, coworker, family, knows as much as you know about the local market. You are a research-based expert. You are a trusted advisor. Share success stories. This is important. Share the success stories of people who recently made decisions to buy and are happy that they followed through. Gary says, I cannot overstate the importance of collecting and sharing authentic personal stories. If you don't have a story in your consultation or a story in your conversations, that it's that validity that people are looking for. And trust me, other people are telling them stories. And so you being able to tell them a story of I basically will say, look, you guys are going to come to a point where you're not sure you're making the right decision. Let me tell you a couple of stories of what we have found over the years, and have something that you can quickly and easily tell them to just help them get through the fear. It's just a fear. So it's bottom of 183, realize it's only natural for our buyers to get a little skeptical when you're telling them it's a good time to buy. Bottom of the page, you must actually become their local authority, real estate expert they know and trust. Anything they hear about real estate, they will filter through your advice. Be their local economic choice or trusted source. So page 184 is, so number one was be the economic expert. I wanted to focus on that one because I think that's really where the meat is of the difference in what I see top agents do and agents who are struggling. Then you're tapping into your why. He really just tells a story in this part of the book about don't be afraid to remind people of their why. When you get into that first consultation time, and then now you're in the heat of you found a house, they're having reluctance, you lost out on a house, etc. Bringing up their sheet that you did at the beginning where you said, must-haves, don't necessarily needs, does this house hit it, but for some reason you're saying I need to think about it. My job is going to be to remind you of why you're buying a house in the first place. And also, would you be able to live with it if you wait and don't get this house? I have found that question does help. So practice not being I'm going to say a wuss, and bringing back up their logical side when they're getting emotional. So he says on page 185 on the last paragraph, talking about personal wants and needs is not manipulation. It's simply reminding people of what they want to buy and why. I actually consider it my fiduciary duty. So getting cold feet can lead to regrets. Reluctance can translate into remorse. People a lot of times will kick themselves for not acting, and yet at the time it's hard because it's emotional. So on page 186, overcoming buyer reluctance. When people have a good reason to buy, they do. Market changes will cause them to hesitate. Last paragraph on 186, in the end, you're being the highest level of fiduciary when you don't let should-be buyers cave in that it's better to wait. Reluctant buyers think that the prices will go lower or that another house will come on that's better. So you just have to have those talks. No one can predict the market. I'm on page 187. He just kind of goes back over, if we found a home today, would you buy it? Do you know that right now, like what about all the houses that haven't come on the market yet that are going to hit in the spring? Well, also there's going to be more buyers. It's getting used to those scripts and understanding those concepts. So 187 is a little bit about supply and demand and how that affects the questions that are going on in the buyer's mind. On page 188, he says the tale of two markets. He's talking about going back to a different part of the book. So he's basically using the scripts that you're using on the sellers, which is fantastic material that he refers to there. I love the diagrams part for your consultations, and then relating that back to the buyer side. And so really understanding the difference in the price points if you're buying up. Buying up is so significant of a thing to understand. When somebody's going from a 200,000 price range to 300,000 price range to 400,000 price range, and conversely moving back down, really getting this material on page 188 and 189 and being able to discuss this. And if the interest rates, like you guys should really understand how much a 1% interest rate would affect the affordability of the house. As a buyer's agent or during a buyer consultation or buyer conversations, you, like even I will get tripped up on explaining that 1%, 10% ratio. And he really outlines it here on page 189. This should be something that you really could practice on your scripts explaining. And explain it backwards and forwards so that you understand it. A 10% drop in price are mollified by 1% point increase in interest rates. So I'm on the middle of page 189 there. I think star that, study it, read it over a few times. Most of your top producers are going to be able to readily explain that. And so should you. That interest rate being so low right now gives them affordability that is, it should create urgency to buyers shopping. And the only thing I think stopping that from happening is that they've been down so long that buyers just think that's never going to go away. And then on page 190, he really does a good job of explaining the buyer's market being a trade-up market. Conversely, I think a seller's market being a good trade-down market. So get those diagrams on page 190 and really be able to take a friend and explain that material. It's talking about really your real estate investors use these tactics all the time. And so think about a first-time home buyer or a mid-range home buyer not really getting these they don't really get this. And you guys as buyer's agents or just as agents in general may not completely get this, but that material right there, some of the best material in the book and so good for your buyer consultations. So he says on page 191, he's just talking about narrowing the field where we need to see 30 homes, but not really. I mean, this is something that we've all done. It again helps. It just goes to the fear of missing out and helping the buyer not go look at homes that they either can't buy or aren't going to buy just for the sake of seeing them. Page 182, the few remaining houses, the narrowing down to really the ones that are going to fit your needs. That is a skill, and that is something that you guys have to practice. I'm telling you, you have to practice it. You have to not be willing to show people homes. When you go out and show homes to people who cannot buy them, it's such a detriment to them and to you. Like, for example, they haven't got pre-qualified yet and they find out later. Best time to buy, get while the getting's good, page 193. So he talks about your best buy list, and I still think that that's an awesome, you ever see a house that you know is going to be sold right now? Like, why is the price that good? Knowing that those houses are there and sending them out to your database, what a gift to them for you to do that. They don't have time to go look at the houses and know about the houses the way that you do. page 194, the top, he's still talking about this daily buying list or best buy list. You might find it to be the most effective indirect offer you will ever make. It will take a buyer who didn't even know they were necessarily going to buy and turn them on right away. So love that for your marketing pieces. Just love it. And he just talks about, we can see through fake bull crap marketing and selling. People can sense it. So when you actually have a confidence and know what you're talking about and know your market, it comes through and it develops trust. Your opportunity time on the bottom of 194, markets always favor one sector or another. A seller's market's a good time to sell, a risky time to buy. Buyer's market only serious is when serious sellers sell. So all buyers are in a favorable position. That's why he's saying smart buyers buy in buyer's markets. So, have that conversation. Is it a good time to buy? Well, what's your reason for buying? Is it a good time or is it not? You really don't know. It's a case by case. I think that it is because of interest rates. And also because prices are still on the rise. So buying it now, as opposed to waiting till a year from now when it's higher. I love to get buyers to buy in kind of transitioning neighborhoods where a bunch of new construction's coming in, or as long as you don't have to move for a while, finding those markets. So page 195, last paragraph, at the end of the day, building buyer urgency is about